This video introduces and demonstrates a variety of tools that we're going to use in a series of videos looking at the issue of web application security. In order to do this, we're going to use an insecure platform called WebGoat, which is developed by the OWASP group, and they put together a series of tutorial exercises within the confines of an insecure Java-based applet. So what we're going to do is load up WebGoat first of all. So hopefully you've managed to download those files from the links provided at the beginning of this video, and we're going to run our web server on port 8080 simply because we have a local host already running. As you can see, a second window has popped up, the Tomcat server, and we're going to leave that one just running in the background. We no longer need that one. The next tool we're going to use is WebScarab. Now WebScarab is a proxy system which will intercept the requests between client and server, and potentially between server and client. And once you've got the files downloaded, you just simply execute it with webscarab.jar, a Java archive. The final tool that we need is a simple web browser, and for the purposes of this video we're going to use Mozilla Firefox, but there's no reason that you can't use Internet Explorer. But in order to interact through the proxy and to allow us to capture the requests and responses as we'll need for later parts of the videos, we're going to have to set up our Firefox environment to use a proxy server. So if we go to Tools Options, just bring that back into view, we need to go to the Advanced tab, select Settings, and you'll see that I've already configured the proxy in this case. If you remember, we loaded up WebScarab, and WebScarab is acting as a proxy listening on the local host IP 127.0.0.1, and we need to set the port number that's used by WebScarab as 8008. And what this will do is it will force all requests from the client to be directed through the proxy server, through WebScarab, which will then allow us to intercept those requests. Once they're completed, they get passed on to the real web server. So having set those settings up, and noting that if you're using Internet Explorer, you'll find those under Tools Internet Options, and navigate through to the Connections Advanced tab. If I just now refresh this page, you'll see that we get the standard prompt, and we're going to log in as guest, and we should then be faced with the user interface to the OWASP system. Now we're currently operating in the default mode, which is that the proxy server isn't currently intercepting any of the requests, they're just being passed directly to the relevant web server. So when we click on things like the Start WebGoat interface, we simply go straight through to the content that we're looking for. And as you'll see from some of the tutorial notes, there's lots of information relating to this user interface and the various options that you have. In order to demonstrate some of the simple techniques of interception of traffic, we're going to go to the general lessons and to HTTP basics. So you'll find this on the navigation window. And what we'll see here is a very simple web-based form, and if we type in a message into the text box here, click on the Go button, and what you'll see is that the text is returned back to us in that same text box, but in reverse. And what's happened is that the content in the text box has been encoded, in this case as a POST request through the HTML form object, sent to the server has processed that string, reversed it, and simply returned it. What we're going to try and do now is manipulate how this happens by using what's called intercepts. So if we go into WebScarab, you'll see lots of requests have gone through, but none of these have been intercepted. We're now going to turn on intercepts. So if you have a look on the tabs, you'll see the summary and the intercept tab, and we're going to intercept requests. Noting that you've got various methods that you can intercept, you can select individual ones, get or post, or if you use the control key, you can select multiple elements. Having selected intercepts for the get and post methods, we're now going to attempt to resubmit our string. So I'm going to do the classic hello world, click on go, and what you'll see is that nothing now happens with the web browser, it's simply waiting for a response. If I now bring in the window that's popped up on the side, you'll see that we have a interface showing the request. You'll see at the top here the words edit request. We can see the method, in this case it's posted data, this is coming from a form, and if we have a look at these headers we can see various pieces of information, including the host details, the user agent that sent the data, the details of the MIME types that are accepted, and various other parameters, including the authorization tag here. And we'll have a look at this one a little later in one of the second videos. For the purposes of this activity, the important parts are the form variables, and in case you get pop-ups appearing like this, just having a look at the host here shows that it's something happening in the background with Google, and this is Mozilla doing a validation checking of the browser, and we can just ignore those particular requests, just accept them, and they'll go away. So having a look back now at the form parameters, you can see that we have the person field, and that's the name of the text box within the form, and if we have a look we can see that the value here, hello world, is what we typed in earlier. And as it happens, we can modify those parameters and we can type in, for example, I am hacking, accept the changes, and what we'll find is that that information has been sent to the server, and the server has done exactly what it should do, and in this case has reversed the text. Now it's worth noting that there's no indication in this user interface that those values have been manipulated. So the user typed in the values into the text box, they were transmitted from the client, and as far as the client is concerned, they went directly to the server, and the server responded with the appropriate information. So you can imagine it would be quite easy to manipulate these kind of values without the end user actually knowing that this has been changed. Obviously in this case we do see it because the text values have been returned. So that's showing how we can manipulate parameters from the client to the server, but equally we can modify things between the server and the client. So we'll have a look now at how we do that. And the first thing that we need to do is go back into WebScarab, and noting that we've got intercept requests currently turned on, we'll disable those and we'll turn on intercept responses. So what we're going to do now is capture the responses coming back from the server, which will allow us to manipulate the text. So if we now go back to our user interface, type in hello world again, click on go, and you'll see now, as we just bring back into the screen, we get a response coming back from the server, and hopefully you can recognise that there is HTML here that looks somewhat like the content that we're seeing in the web interface. Obviously these are all the menu options, and as we scroll down we have the form-based content that we saw earlier. If we change into the raw mode, we can see straight away that we're dealing with HTML. Scroll our way down and we should be able to find the environment where we were typing, the text boxes and the prompts that were shown on screen, and somewhere within here we should be able to find the form parameters. So here is the instructions to the user about entering your name, and if we scroll over to the right we should be able to find the text box here. So what we can do is simply type over it. Not only can we modify the values contained within the text box itself, but we can also change the actual HTML and the prompts that are shown on screen. So we can put in, for example, this is a hacked page, click on accept the changes, and what will happen is the information, together with a few other requests, remembering that the web page often contains additional content, so we'll just accept the other changes, and we can see now not only have we inserted the this is a test string into the text box, we've also manipulated the client HTML content as well. So we're changing what the user sees within their web browser. And again, looking at the user interface, there's nothing to indicate that the content has been manipulated or changed from the original data being transmitted, and so we have to ask, what could we do with this? And obviously anything within a web page, any HTML based content could be easily manipulated, so the text shown on screen could be changed, forms could be submitted to alternative websites, and obviously malware could potentially be inserted inline. Now, whilst we've completed this particular activity and we've shown the ways in which you can intercept traffic both between client-server and server-client, it's just worth having a look at the user interface of the OWASP WebGoat system. In particular, there are hints available, remembering that we've still got intercepts in place for the responses, so I'll accept that and disable it temporarily. You can see that we receive hints periodically, showing various information relating to the activity that's being undertaken. There are also solutions available, so if you really get stuck, you can have a look at how the tutorial is meant to work, and some examples including screenshots of the configurations and setups you might need to try to complete the particular activity you're undertaking. So, having now completed the HTTP basic lesson, our next series of videos will consider further activities within the OWASP WebGoat system. Please remember that if you are undertaking any of these activities at home, you should not use any of these techniques against public-facing websites or against any system for which you do not have the permission of both the owner, the operator of the website itself, and also any of the networking infrastructure over which the traffic may propagate. Please remember that these activities could constitute a crime, particularly in the UK under the Computer Misuse Act, but also internationally against other legislation.